So the first thing I have written down on my piece of paper is if you trip walking to the podium, say, "I'm a professional, do not try this at home." So I haven't tripped, so I'm gonna move to the next thing on my piece of paper. And it says, "Rachel, say the generic commencement speech welcome." So in true commencement speech fashion, generic welcome to faculty, staff, friends, family, and fellow classmates. When I was selected as commencement speaker, I felt immense pressure to represent the entirety of the student body in my speech. I thought this speech had to be funny, it needed to be memorized, and everyone needed to have this great takeaway. But there is no way I can do justice for such a diverse student body. So I'm going to share a few of my own reflections on the Humphrey experience. If there is one thing that I have learned, it is that Humphrey could be located anywhere. And for me, it would be located somewhere warmer. But it's not the location that makes the experience, it is the relationships. Whether it is a positive or negative relationship, we have still managed to grow. My growth from relationships has me standing here today speaking about a topic that affects me daily. I have never publicly spoken about mental health. And one thing that people don't realize is that I struggle with chronic anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and depression. It's really a trifecta. So I think some of my classmates that are in my econ or regression would know that I have test anxiety. I also have written down on this piece of paper, contingency plan. If you're too anxious to talk about mental health, move to paragraph 5. But you know what? I'm not going to move to paragraph 5 today. I'm going to talk about mental health. Thank you. So bringing it before I came to Humphrey, naturally applying to graduate school is an anxiety-inducing experience. So I applied to 9 graduate schools. And as I attended the spring visit days of other schools, I was disillusioned with their student body's desire to undermine their classmates to achieve personal success. This was a stark contrast to my visit day at Humphrey. Students and professors at Humphrey were concerned with this term called the collective good. Students kept saying, "I care more about the collective good rather than my own individual success." What initially attracted me to Humphrey was the quirkiness and the kindness of the student body. You cannot teach people to be kind. That is an intrinsic quality. I feel at home here. To me, everyone at Humphrey has always seemed like a character on a TV show, including the professors. So I've really always felt like a character myself, and this is the cast that I wanted to join. Humphrey is the first cast of characters where classmates and professors talk openly about mental health. Humphrey professors created a culture where mental health does not impede a student's ability to learn. Because of the relationships with my peers and my professors, I'm no longer afraid to talk about mental health. With this newfound confidence, I now talk about my struggles with my friends outside of Humphrey. This is a conversation that I have never had before. In these relationships, both in and out of Humphrey, I realized that I'm not alone. In fact, I was never alone. Not only have I grown in these conversations, but so has everyone else in my community. But out of the multitude of topics that trigger anxiety in this speech for me, it's not the discussion of mental health, it's the conversation of race. I also have written down again, contingency plan, skip to paragraph 10, but I'm not gonna skip because this is a very important conversation. In these needed conversations, I'm always afraid that I'm going to say the wrong thing. And if there is one thing that Humphrey has taught me, is that these courageous conversations, they are necessary. It is clear to me that when I came to Humphrey, I did not understand the depth of race relations in America. I still have so much more to learn. It is going to be a lifetime of growth for me. But it is in my relationships, in the classroom, in the study room, in the bar, in my home. And I really think that these are the only places I've gone for the past 2 years. The bar, my home, and the classroom. But it's in these places that I've come to contemplate how race plays a role in our society. It is only in being surrounded by my peers that this growth has occurred. My personal growth is intertwined with our ability to grow as a collective. It is not the facts or the figures that move us forward. It is our commitment to relationships that allow us to progress. It is nearly impossible to pinpoint one specific example of growth over the past 2 years. I believe that growth occurs over time. It is not something that is instantaneous. However, in the last 2 years, I've watched my classmates grow. I've seen classmates that never spoke during the first semester build lasting relationships in Humphrey. These relationships gave my peers the courage to speak about the issues they care about, just as I am doing today. Their ability to open up in conversation allowed me to see my own ambitions as achievable. Specifically, as mentioned, I'm a global policy concentration here at Humphrey. When I entered the Humphrey School of Public Affairs, I did not think global policy was a profession that was attainable for me. I did not believe that I had the capacity for the demands of this field. But through the courage of my fellow classmates, I decided to no longer hide behind my own anxiety, but pursue a field that I am passionate about. So thank you to my classmates, and thank you to my professors. You had the courage to open up. I didn't know how to enter the field of global policy, or if I would, but the classroom skills, personal growth, and relationships have allowed me to make my dreams a reality. But what is all this talk about growth and relationships for? What was our motivation for attending public policy school? And although many of our friends and family here today think that we're studying politics instead of public policy, they may ask us, what is public policy? Well, let me tell you what public policy is. Public policy is striving to better the communities that we live and work within. And the only way to better our communities is through relationships. So if you have not gotten it by now, the theme of this speech is that we grow through relationships. So as we move into the next phase of our lives, we must continue to grow our relationships. We need to carry out the mission of Humphrey. And that mission is to inspire, educate, and support innovative leaders to advance the common good in a diverse world. We need to remember the common good only advances when we grow individually through the exposure to the personal experience of others. And the only way this exposure happens is through relationships. So although we may be walking out of Humphrey as different people, we need to acknowledge the relationships that brought us to Humphrey in the first place. Whether that person was a family member or a friend or faculty, we need to say thank you. And for me personally, it was my family. They were often the brunt of my struggles with mental health, and so to them, I want to say thank you. And finally, I want to say thank you to the faculty and staff at Humphrey. These relationships were cultivated because of the culture that you established within the school. And the only way these relationships will continue is through your commitment to advancing the common good. So here's to you, fellow classmates. It is because of our relationships that we have grown. The relationships we built in Humphrey, they do not end today. They only progress as we move forward. And we need to continue to value and grow our relationships. Congratulations, 2019 Humphrey School of Public Affairs graduates.